This video is the next video in the coordinate geometry of the line videos. In particular, this video is focusing on worksheet number 8, which is all about graphing lines. Now, graphing lines is really important, and it's a skill that we're going to learn over the course of this video and over the course of the week in school. However, when we're graphing lines, if we have any line parallel to the x-axis, we will have an equation which will be y is equal to some number. The diagram below shows the lines y is equal to 3 and y is equal to -4, and we can see that here. I'm highlighting y is equal to 3 and y is equal to 4, and they're the two lines you can see, and they're parallel to what we have here to be the x-axis. Note, lines parallel to the x-axis are horizontal, and horizontal lines are flat, so they have no slope. So the slopes of all lines that are parallel to the x-axis have a slope of 0. Any line parallel to the y-axis will have an equation which will be x is equal to some number. The coordinate plane here shows two lines that are parallel to the y-axis, and we have x equal to -2 and x equal to 1. So the lines are parallel to the x-axis are vertical, so their slopes are what we call undefined. So we can't get their slopes. Now, another thing to remind yourself is the equation of the x-axis is y is equal to 0, and the equation of the y-axis is x is equal to 0. And we were able to figure that out when we were figuring out if points were on the axis or not, or figuring out where a graph or an equation of the line cuts the x and y-axis. To go through a few examples then, it says here in example 1, draw a pair of axes and sketch these 4 lines. So I have the pair of axes here, and I'm ready to draw the 4 lines. So first of all, we have x equal to 4. So how we draw this is we go to x4, which we have here. I just did a dot, and we draw a line straight up and straight down. So this here is the line x equal to 4. Next, it asks us in B to draw the line y is equal to 2. So the next thing you do is you go on the y-axis and go to 2. And to draw this line, we need to draw to the left and to the right of that point. So this here is y equal to 2. After that then, it asks us in C to draw the line x is equal to -2. So we go to the x-axis, go to -2, filling that in, and we draw up and down, and that's that line there. So this is x equal to -2, and finally we have y is equal to -3. So we go to the y-axis, we go to -3, and we draw a line straight through that point parallel to the x-axis, and that's the 4 lines drawn. We'll just label this one as y is equal to -3, and they're exactly like the questions you're going to be asked to do. Now, in order to plot any other line, so that's a line that's not parallel with the x or y axis, we need to find 2 points on the line. When we found these 2 points, we plot the points on a coordinate diagram and join the points together with a ruler. The easiest way to do this is to find where the line cuts the x and the y axis, and we know exactly how to do that from one of the worksheets we did. We know that when a line cuts the x axis, y is equal to 0, and when a line cuts the y axis, x is equal to 0. To find the point where a line cuts the x-axis, you take the equation of the line and replace y with 0. You solve the equation to find the value of x, and this value of x is the x-coordinate of the point and is called the x-intercept. To find the point where the line cuts the y-axis, you take the equation of the line and replace x with 0. You solve the equation to find the value of y, and this value of y is the y-coordinate of the point and is called the y-intercept. Now, when I go through a few examples, it will make it much easier. Example 2 here asks us to, on a coordinate plane, plot the line 3x minus 5y minus 15. To do that, we first of all need to figure out where it cuts the x-axis. And then we need to figure out where it cuts the y-axis. Now, where the line cuts the x-axis, we let y equal to 0. And we know how to do this from a previous video. So we take the equation of the line, we have 3x minus 5y minus 15. And what we're going to do now is we're going to let any y in the equation be equal to 0. So this y here is now going to turn into 0. So what we get then is this becomes 3x minus 5 times 0 minus 15 is equal to 0. This then becomes 3x minus 5 times 0 is just 0, so we won't write that down. Minus 15 is equal to 0. Then we can plus 15 to both sides. and we'll get that 3x is equal to 15. Then we can divide both sides by 3, and what we're going to get in the end is x is equal to 5. The point then, or the coordinate that we have, well, here we have that x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 0. So the point that we have is 5, 0. Now we found where it cuts the x-axis, we can also find where it cuts the y-axis. The exact same process, the only difference is when the line cuts the y-axis, x is equal to 0. So again, we take the line, which is 3x minus 5y minus 15 is equal to 0. This time we go along and every time we see an x we replace it with 0. So the x here we can see is behind the 3. So this is going to become 3 times 0 minus 5y minus 15 is equal to 0. 3 times 0 is 0, so we're left with minus 5y minus 15 is equal to 0. Then we can plus 15 to both sides. We're going to be left with minus 5y is equal to 15. Then we can divide both sides by minus 5. And we're going to be left with y is equal to minus 3. Looking then at what we have, well, we have that x is equal to 0 and y is equal to minus 3. So the point we're going to get then is 0, minus 3. We now have 2 points, and we have 0, minus 3 and 5, 0. So we can plot them on the graph. We'll start with 0, minus 3. So we go 0 on the x-axis and minus 3 on the y-axis. So the point will be here. And the next point we have is 5, 0. So we go 5 across on the x-axis and 0 up on the y-axis. So the point will be here. The final thing you need to do, and you need to do this with a ruler, is you just join the dots together. And you continue them either side. And that's how we've drawn the line of 3x minus 15y minus 15 is equal to 0. Example 3 asks us here to plot the line 2x plus 5y minus 10 is equal to 0. So again, we need to figure out where this line cuts, first of all, the x-axis, and secondly, the y-axis. We know that when it cuts the x-axis, that y is going to be equal to 0. So the first thing we do is we write out 2x plus 5y minus 10 is equal to 0. Of course, we have here that we need y to be equal to 0. So every time we see y, we're going to replace it with 0. This becomes 2x plus 5 times 0 minus 10 is equal to 0. 5 times 0 is 0, so this just stays as 2x minus 10 is equal to 0. We can plus 10 to both sides. So we're going to get that 2x is equal to 10. And to get x by itself, we divide both sides by 2. So we'll get x is equal to 5. Now we can write the point. We know that y is equal to 0. We now have 5 is equal to x. So the point that we're going to have is 5, 0. To figure out where this line crosses the y-axis, we know that x is equal to 0. Again, we write out the equation of the line. So 2x plus 5y minus 10 is equal to 0. This time, what we're going to do is we're going to replace any time we see an x, we're going to replace it with 0. In this case then, this becomes 2 times 0 plus 5y minus 10 is equal to 0. Then we get 5y minus 10 is equal to 0, as 2 times 0 is 0. We're going to plus 10 to both sides. And we're going to get that 5y is equal to 10. We can then divide both sides by 5. So we're going to get that y is equal to 2. Looking back up at the point then, we know that x is 0, and we now know that y is 2, so the point that we have is 0, 2. Finally then, we just need to plot these on the coordinate plane. So the first point we have is 0, 2, so that's going to be here on the coordinate plane. And then the second point we have is 5, 0, and that's going to be here on the coordinate plane. The final thing we need to do, and you will do this with your ruler, is just join the 2 points together, and then they continue out either side, and that's the line drawn. Example 4 then asks us to draw the line 3x minus 5y plus 12 is equal to 0 on the coordinate plane there. Again, we need to find where it cuts, first of all, the x-axis, and second of all, we figure out where it's cutting the y-axis. Now, when it cuts the x-axis, we know that y is equal to 0. The first thing we'll do is write down the equation of the line, so 3x minus 5y plus 12 is equal to 0. We have in this example that every time we see a y, we're going to replace it with 0. So this is going to become 3x minus 5 times 0 plus 12 is equal to 0. This is going to change to 3x plus 12 is equal to 0. We can take 12 from both sides. When we take 12 from both sides, we'll be left with 3x is equal to minus 12. And we can divide both sides by 3. And finally, we'll be left then that x is equal to minus 4. So the point then, we know that y is 0, and we found now that x is equal to minus 4. So then the point we have is minus 4, 0. When a graph cuts the y-axis, we know that x is equal to 0. Again, the next thing we do is write out the equation. So 3x minus 5y plus 12 is equal to 0. In this instance, we have that x is equal to 0, so we're going to replace all the x's with 0. What we'll be left with then is 3 times 0 minus 5y plus 12 is equal to 0. This then becomes minus 5y plus 12 is equal to 0. We can minus 12 from both sides. We'll be left with minus 5y is equal to minus 12. And then we can divide both sides by minus 5. When we divide both sides by minus 5, we'll be left with the answer 2.4. Now, we know that x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 2.4, so the point that we have is 0, 2.4. Plotting those points on the graph then, we have 0, 2.4, which is approximately here, and we have minus 4, 0, which is here. Then, the last thing we do is we join these together, and we ensure that the line continues on after this. You're drawing it with a ruler to make sure that it's completely straight, and that's the end of this example. Looking at some of the questions that you're going to be doing then, so question 1 asks you to write down the equations of A, B, C and D shown below. What you need to remember is that any line that is parallel to the x-axis, so if I write parallel to the x-axis, is going to be y is equal to something, and it's just going to be a number. For the second question, then you need to remember that parallel to the y-axis, we have that the line is going to be x is equal to some number, and you got to figure out what that number is. Question 3 then is a mixture of both question 1 and question 2 together. I might do one of them so that you can be able to do question 1 and 2. So here we're looking for A. A is parallel to the x-axis, and it crosses the y-axis at y equal to 1. So the equation of the line A is 1. Then 4 asks you to draw a pair of axes and sketch the 4 lines. That is very simple to example 1 I did in this video. Question 5 asks you what the equation of the x-axis and what the equation of the y-axis is. We know that. That is also in the notes. If you go back and have a look at the start of this worksheet, the answer will be there. Question 6 says, find the coordinates at the point where the line x minus 2y minus 6 equals 0 intersects the x and y axis. That's no problem at all. We know that when we have the x-axis, that y is equal to 0. And when we have the y-axis, x is equal to 0. So you just sub those in and you find what the other value is. So for example, the x-axis, you need to get that x is equal to something. And for the y-axis, you need to get that y is equal to something, and that will give you the point. Then you sketch a coordinate plane, so your x and y axis, and you draw or sketch the line. 7 is the exact same, and 8 is they're just asking you to draw the line exactly like the 3 examples I did here in this video. So that brings this video to a close. If there's any questions in relation to anything, just get in contact with me and I'll get back to you straight away. But I'm hoping that the questions you're going to do on this worksheet will be okay.